So this is the Tecno Pova 5G, the first 5G device from Tecno Mobile, also the first Dimensity power device from the brand, sporting the 6nm Dimensity 900 5G chipset, 120Hz high refresh rate display, fast UFS 3.1 storage, and a couple more interesting specs. Looks like 2022 is off to an interesting start. My name is Izzy and welcome to the channel. So this is the Tecno Pova 5G, retailing for about 147,000 naira with some pretty impressive specifications. Now I've had this for a while and I'll say it's an interesting device, but I have some reservations which I'll address as we proceed. Now the Pova 5G is indeed the first 5G offering from Tecno Mobile and also the first Tecno device to use the Dimensity chipset. Not just any, but the Dimensity 900, which is quite an impressive mid-range chipset, higher than the Dimensity 810U powering the Poco M4 Pro and Redmi's China-only Note 11. But what exactly does this bring to Tecno's Pova series? Interestingly, this is my first time reviewing a Tecno Pova. Now we know the Tecno Pova series to be the affordable, battery-powered and gaming-focused of Tecno's devices, and I'd say the Pova 5G takes it a massive step up, not only in price as this is also the most expensive Pova release, but also in specifications. As of the time of release of the Pova 5G, the Dimensity 900 is the most powerful chipset Tecno has used on a device. I don't want to jinx it, but I hope we see more powerful chipset on the higher Tecno devices for 2022. Fingers crossed for that one. Fingers crossed. Now, Tecno's latest Pova is a 5G enabled device, as you can already tell from its name, and is a much welcome improvement. Though we do not yet have 5G in Nigeria, but I'm hopeful we'll see a 5G launch this year, at least from MTN. As far as packaging goes, Tecno spares no resource on this one. It's a really long box, which doesn't really contain anything extra, just the conventional accessories including the charger and earphones. Tecno remains committed to letting us keep those for now at least. Now the protective casing that comes in the box is not the conventional one. It is nicely designed but plastic and quite light. It doesn't look to offer much protection, but that is not the problem as the Pova 5G has a plastic rear build, so it should be durable. Also, I prefer the feel of the plastic case to the glossy and reflective finish we have on the Pova 5G. This looks and feels a lot better. Now if you were wondering, it also comes with a pre-installed screen protector right out of the box. On the design side of things, the Tecno Pova 5G has a familiar design with its camera module to the left of the rear in a subtle bump. Like I already mentioned, the rear is built of plastic and it has a reflective shiny finish. You can notice the dual pattern design with slanted stripes which has the Manchester City logo sitting conveniently towards the bottom right. It is actually a long phone, standing at about 7 inches tall, precisely 6.9 inches. That is measuring its display size. It is not a phone you want to use one-handed. The Tecno Pova 5G is a dual SIM device and its SIM slot also supports microSD card expansion, so you can have both SIM cards and an SD card. All ports and buttons are where you expect them to be. Its fingerprint scanner is on the power button and you would find it really fast and responsive, no issues at all. At the bottom frame of the device you have all its ports. The Tecno Pova 5G has the 3.5mm headphone jack, also charges via USB-C. Sadly with 18 watts fast charging, which is decent fast charging, but I think we can all agree at this price point 25 watts is the minimum allowed, especially not for a 6000 mAh battery. Now this takes almost 3 hours to charge full from 0 to 100, but I guess that's less of an issue because the battery is massive and you may only need to charge at the end of your day, but more on that later. Still speaking of ports, the Pova 5G, to the disappointment of many, has a single bottom firing mono speaker, which is decent and loud, but at this price point, stereo speakers should really be the standard. You can easily obstruct this one while gaming. Thankfully, it has dual noise cancelling microphones, one at the top and the other at the bottom. This should make for better call quality and audio on video recording. On the rear of the Tecno Pova 5G, you'll notice a quad LED flash, which is really bright. Also just above the display is a dual LED front-facing flash which can help with nighttime selfies. The display of the Pova 5G is a massive 1080p LCD display and is 6.9 inches tall. It has a hole punch style for its selfie camera. The display is made of glass but not Gorilla Glass. It is a decent LCD display, definitely large enough for media consumption but certainly too large for one-handed use. But if you desire it, you can enable one-handed mode. The Tecno Pova 5G display has 120Hz screen refresh rate, which is set to automatically switch between 60 and 120Hz by default, but I prefer it set to 120Hz at all times because why not? Its 6000 milliampere battery can't take it, and operating it at 120Hz is a far smoother and better experience. It has a touch sampling rate of 180Hz, which is an ideal one for a 90Hz display. A 240Hz touch sampling rate would have been better for responsiveness, but this still works. On the software side of things, the Tecno Pova 5G runs on Android 11 and Tecno's iOS version 8. Whether it will get updated to Android 12 is a question for Tecno to answer. We've seen iOS 8 previously on the Camon 18 Premier, visually better than previous iOS versions, still feature packed, and I can say for certain, bloated as always. You can easily uninstall the bloatware apps you don't need and disable or uninstall the apps that send intrusive ads. Yes, you still get intrusive ads here, random and sometimes explicit content. You can disable the notification access for these apps for a cleaner experience. On the home screen, when you swipe from the left, you have the zero screen, which I'll say needs refinement because its content is also too random and explicit sometimes too. You can easily disable that from the home screen settings, or to save you all the stress, just use a custom launcher of your choice. Now you also get Tecno's voice assistant LR on here. Definitely not a better option than Google Assistant, but certainly good enough for basic commands. The Tecno Pova 5G comes packed with more than enough RAM, and coupled with the Dimensity 900, this is a really fast phone, capable of handling whatever you throw at it. For context, this is the benchmark scores of the Poco M12 Pro I reviewed not long ago, and these are the scores from the Pova 5G. Significantly higher than even the Redmi Note 10 Pro and Samsung's Galaxy A52. Of course, these are just benchmark scores and they don't really tell the whole story, but I can say for certain, this is a really fast device. The Tecno Pova uses MemFusion to expand its RAM even further from 8GB to 11GB from its internal memory, so that's more memory for better multitasking experience. However, you can't disable or toggle this feature. It has 128GB of UFS 3.1 internal storage. I think this is also the first Tecno device to have UFS 3.1. Previous devices had UFS 2.2. The Dimensity 900 chipset is a gaming capable one, though not the best in graphics, but good enough on frame rates. It uses the Mali G68 for its GPU. While you may not get to play at the highest graphics settings on titles like PUBG or Call of Duty Mobile, you can do so at maximum frame rates as long as you keep the graphics settings low. I think most gamers may go for higher frame rates over better graphics, so the Dimensity 900 passes in that regard. I played Call of Duty Mobile and the gameplay was smooth for the most part, and it didn't get inconveniently hot. Where the device surprisingly got overheated was when I used the camera for a few minutes, which I found quite surprising, though it was a hot and sunny day, so I guess that probably contributed, but I'll surely update on my social media if I experience this again, so make sure you're following me on Twitter and Instagram, links down in the description. Now, speaking of cameras, the Tecno Pova 5G comes packed with a triple rear camera setup, which for the most part is a 50 megapixel main camera with an AI lens and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. No ultra wide nor macro camera. For its selfie camera, we have a 16 megapixel shooter which gets the job done for the most part as long as you have the right lighting conditions. HDR is decent on the selfie camera, but you don't get that on portraits. Also, subject separation on portrait is far from perfect, and I'd say the image processing could do with a little saturation. On its rear camera, you can get sharp and color accurate photos. HDR here is good and you can get high-res photos when you enable Ultra HD. For closer subjects, you get decent level of background blur. Also, for portraits using the rear cameras, I'll say it does a pretty decent job, though it's not perfect with subject separation, and also like the portrait selfies, you don't get HDR processing here. Summarily, its picture quality is decent, but I've seen much better at this price point. The Tecno Pova 5G has no problems taking photos at night thanks to good image processing when you enable night mode. For its video capabilities, the Pova 5G is able to shoot videos up to 4K at 30 frames per second from both its selfie and rear cameras with no stabilization. You can get software stabilization if you shoot at 1080p 30 fps. You can also shoot at 1080p 60 fps, but there is also no stabilization at that level. Okay, so this is to give you an idea of what the selfie camera of the Tecno Pova 5G looks like. It is a 16 megapixel selfie camera and I'm currently shooting at 4K 30 frames per second. And also the microphone quality, it has your noise cancelling microphones, so you should get significantly better audio than you've gotten from previous Tecno or Pova devices which had single noise cancelling microphone. Yeah, I'm talking too much. This is the quality. So in summary, the Tecno Pova 5G is an interesting device with really impressive specifications. It's fast, decent gaming performance, good battery life. However, its cameras is not its strongest point, but I can say it gets the job done in the right lighting conditions. For 147,000 naira, this is a pretty solid device, but 2022 pretty much just got started and the competition will likely bring the heat at this price point. So you might want to hold off a bit to see what the competition brings to the table before making that purchase decision. However, this is still a solid device to go for. That is it for the Tecno Pova 5G. Be sure to leave a comment if you have any questions and also give this video a like if it was helpful. And of course, also consider subscribing. Peace out.